Alrighty, so I'm in college now, which is a very different experience, obviously. I'm not going to get too much into personal stuff, but yeah, I'm here. This is where I will be for the foreseeable future. Um, I'm not sure if this is like the background that I'll always use, just because I have a bunch of movie posters up on my bed. I just need to figure out a way to situate the camera. That's neither here nor there. What we're here today to talk about is my ranking of every Wes Anderson movie. This is a different kind of video. This is the first time I've done a ranking video in a pretty long time, which is cool. Um, so yeah, you kind of know how this works. Again, this is like my personal opinion of these movies. I would love to know your rankings in the comments down below. One thing I do want to very much emphasize is that I like all of Wes Anderson's movies. I don't think he has made a bad movie. There are ones that I definitely like a lot more, but just because a movie ranks lower on this list doesn't mean that I don't like it. I'm going to be putting my ratings alongside the movies when I rank them, so let's just get right into it. Coming in last place is unfortunately Isle of Dogs. This is a movie that I really loved the first time I saw it. It was a movie that like I got really excited for. I seeked out a theater to see it because it wasn't really showing around me. This was a movie that one of the first ones I remember really I don't know really wanting to see, like being like consciously like I need to see this movie. I need to find a theater. But like upon rewatching it, it's good. Like it is a very well-made movie. It is so sharp with its animation and its idiosyncratic shots. It still is Wes Anderson, so there still is that care. It's just I feel like they sacrificed a lot of story with this one. I feel like he just kind of had an idea for this movie, and its script is pretty weak. I can't really remember any characters from this, any major plot points. It just felt like a movie showing off. And I think that's sometimes where Wes Anderson can lose people, is when he sacrifices story for a lot of visual tricks. And for me, that works with a lot of his stuff, but for this one, it doesn't work as much. Now, again, this is still a really enjoyable movie. It's still very watchable. If somebody is like, hey, let's watch Isle of Dogs, I won't have any problem with that. It's just that out of all of his movies, this one definitely stands out as the weakest. Bottle Rocket is up next, and this is so I watched Bottle Rocket for the first time the day I saw Asteroid City, and I went into it expecting it to be his worst movie. People either pick this or the Darjeeling Limited for whatever reason, but for me, Bottle Rocket is a it's more interesting to watch it for what it what it's what it is rather than what it's doing, if that makes any sense. Like, its actual execution isn't fantastic, but the characters and the world building and the shots and the music are all there. Like, there are very interesting characters all throughout this movie, especially Bob. I really liked him. And the dynamic between Owen Wilson and Luke Wilson is really, really great, and you can see their chemistry, like, already. And I think that this movie focuses on some really, really just great character moments. That's what this movie is for me. It's a collection of a bunch of really great character moments, but coming back to it as a full movie, it isn't. It's a first time movie. This is his first feature length film, and I think you can really see that. Like, his style isn't fully on display yet, but it is there. Like, he's slowly warming up to it, and I think that this movie, while not perfect, there's definitely some moments that drag a bit. And Wes Anderson sometimes has this problem of having shorter movies, but they feel really, really long. And I think you feel the length the most with this movie. But other than that, it's still a really great time. Again, it's worth checking out just for the character interactions alone, and it's very well shot. So I definitely still recommend Bottle Rocket. I know a lot of people really love this thing, but for me personally, it's not one of my favorites. A movie of his that I hadn't seen prior to like making this list. This was the last movie up on the docket to see is The Life Aquatic of Steve Zissou. I just watched it a couple days ago, and I definitely feel like this is underappreciated. I know I'm putting it pretty low on my ranking, but I ended up really loving this thing. I think it is his least emotional and his least focused on like big emotions and character relationships, and I think it's definitely more of a comedy and more of like an action-heavy film. Well, it isn't an action movie. I think it's more about the spectacle and the world building and letting these characters interact with weird situations. I think that's what this movie is mainly about. And I really like that change of pace. Bill Murray is fantastic in this thing. I think it's one of his sadder movies, even though there's a lack of emotion. You can definitely feel a bit of poignancy in this thing. I think Owen Wilson gives one of his best performances in this thing. It is honestly a weird paradox that, like, I feel like it doesn't fully feel like a Wes Anderson movie, but it also very much is. Like, I don't know, he tried something very different here, and while, again, it's not in, like, the upper echelon of his films for me, it really pays off. You get some really interesting shots and some really interesting moments in this thing, so definitely recommend Steve Zissou. This pick might be pretty controversial, especially amongst the crowd that definitely doesn't like Wes Anderson's more overindulgent movies. But number 8, I have The Royal Tenenbaums. Look, this movie is fantastic. I think it is one of the best movies about family in general. I think it hits that specific quirks that families have and their relationships with each other and how they all fit in together and how messy family can be. It taps into a very specific emotion that I wasn't expecting it to, and it really blew me away in that aspect. There's also a lot of really heavy scenes in this, especially the one of Luke Wilson's character almost committing suicide. That hit a little too close to home. That one was kind of hard to watch. But yeah, The Royal Tenenbaums is a fantastic character study and a wonderful look into the world of a sort of dysfunctional family. But for me, why it's a little bit lower on the list, I feel like it is a little too plain, if that makes any sense. There are some shots and sequences in here that feel a little underbaked, that feel a little, not listless, but they don't feel up to Wes Anderson's standards, even at the time. But I do really enjoy his more lower key movies, and I feel like I could rewatch this over and over again. It is just such a heartwarming movie, and something that, like, I don't know, made me reevaluate my relationships with my family, and like it made me appreciate that more. Just because, I don't know, for me this is one of the most wholesome movies I think I've ever seen, and I would really recommend it. Again, maybe not in my favorite portion of Wes Anderson's filmography, but one that definitely stands the test of time and would be way higher on any other director's list. Another controversial pick, I feel like, I put the Darjeeling Limited over Royal Tenenbaums and Steve Zissou. I really love the Darjeeling Limited. This is another movie where like people say, "Oh, it's his worst. It's not that great. It's kind of forgettable." And I went into it with that attitude of like, "Okay, this isn't going to be his best movie," but it wowed me. Just how he is able to create such deep relationships with these characters almost right away is fantastic. I mean, I instantly bought into Owen Wilson and Adrian Brody and Jason Schwartzman's like chemistry immediately. It all felt so specific and so accurate. If that makes any sense. And the like kind of faux self-discovery journey that they're going on is very entertaining to watch. And the music in this movie is probably my favorite of any of his movies. And honestly, I could see this creeping up the list because it is so rewatchable. I have watched this movie. I just watched it for the first time in February. I think I watched it twice since then, and it is just such an enjoyable and refreshing time every single watch through. I feel like this movie is something I need sometimes, and it's just as a breath of fresh air when I watch the Darjeeling Limited. It's so fun and so carefree and so like it feels like emotional therapy, if that makes any sense. Watching this movie, it just feels like a breath of fresh air over you when you watch the Darjeeling Limited. Again, it maybe doesn't reach the heights of some of his other movies. There are, it's a little too quick. I feel like this movie ends before it should have, and there are moments towards the beginning where the pacing feels a bit off. But other than that, I really love the Darjeeling Limited, and I think more people should appreciate this thing for what it is. So. His latest film, Asteroid City, sits at number 6 on my list, and this movie is also pretty high on my best of 2023 list, so far at least. I really had a great time with this thing. I had such high expectations, especially coming off of The French Dispatch, which was my second favorite movie of 2021. That thing blew me away. It was such a grand and sweeping movie, and for me, it felt like his opus, if that makes any sense, like his masterpiece. This is the movie that he had been working up to his entire career to make, and it's the most Wes Anderson experience you could possibly have. And I guess that's why some people didn't like it, but people who feel like really big fans of even like his modern work, like I am, just love the hell out of that movie, and you'll see that obviously later. And Asteroid City felt like a return to the lower stakes movies that he made earlier on in his career. It's still very meta and still kind of up its own ass in a good way. Like it's a movie inside of a play, inside of a documentary. Like that kind of thing is still going on here. But for me, its characters felt extremely down to earth. The colors and the visuals are some of his best of all time. Like the color palette specifically in this movie is absolutely fantastic. And then he still manages to get so much emotion out of you while also overstimulating you with just incredible cinematography and music. For me, this feels like one of his most cohesive movies, some of his best characters, some of his best writing. It feels like a mix of his earlier stuff and his more modern work, and I think it just is the perfect blend and is a movie for all Wes Anderson fans. And I feel like he really hit a home run with Asteroid City, and I honestly don't know where he's going to go next because, wow, yeah, Asteroid City was a big triumph for him. Rounding out our top 5 is the Grand Budapest Hotel. I don't feel like I have to talk that much about this movie because everybody knows how great it is. Everybody knows that, like, even people who aren't into Wes Anderson really love the Grand Budapest Hotel. Like, I have a friend who really doesn't like Wes Anderson and then watched this movie and was like, holy shit, this is amazing. Because it is. It is a genuinely perfect movie. It is so funny, so well acted, so well shot. The story is so engaging and emotional and impactful. Again, I don't really have anything new to say. I feel like every film bro and their mother has talked to death about this movie, where to a point it can be a little bit overrated just because like it's not like one of the best movies ever made, like top 5 ever, like a lot of people will say it is, but it is fantastic, and I think everybody should watch the Grand Budapest Hotel. Number 4 is the French Dispatch. This is his 2021 masterpiece. I've loved the hell out of the French Dispatch. This movie is pure distilled, like, entertainment. It is throwing so much at you at once and like doing so much, and it all works for me. It somehow manages to juggle all of these anthology little shorts, and it just works. Like honestly, I feel like Wes Anderson's style, like at least modern style of storytelling, really works in this like anthology bite-sized bits that is in an overarching story because he gets to show off different sides of his filmmaking and different sides of his style in this kind of genre. and it really, really worked for me. It was so funny and just so visually pleasing to watch, and there were so many great performances, so many wonderful characters, and like the animation sequence is fantastic. I love the scene about the insane painter guy and his love story, and especially with Adrian Brody. Adrian Brody's performance in this movie is one of my favorite comedic performances ever. I laughed at everything he said. Phenomenal performance from him. But to me, The French Dispatch is just Wes Anderson firing on all cylinders, and it way, 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 way paying off, because it just is flawless in my mind. If you don't like Fantastic Mr. Fox, I feel like there has to be something wrong with you, because this is just one of the most wholesome movies I have ever seen. It's so pure and so full of life. It just is that good of a movie. It's not overrated in the slightest. I think it is easily, if like one of, if not the best animated film to ever be made. Okay, that's for another day. But God, Fantastic Mr. Fox is, again, like, this is a movie I don't really know what to say about, just because everybody has said everything there is to say about Fantastic Mr. Fox. But like, for me personally, this was one of the first. It came out when I was 5, so obviously I wasn't very conscious of what a good movie is or not. But I just remember seeing this and like thinking, wow, this is something really special. And now I've seen it so many times over again, and like have grown with this movie, and have seen it from different angles. And I'm sure as I get older, as I become an adult, I will relate to it and fall in love with it all over again in a completely separate way. This is genuinely a wonderful achievement in animation and filmmaking in general. Excuse me. That it's Fantastic Mr. Fox. This movie's brilliant. It's Cam's. I think it's Cam's favorite movie of all time, if I'm not mistaken. She just got a tattoo of that, which is cool. But yeah, it's Fantastic Mr. Fox. What more do you want me to say? Another very recent viewing, I saw this for the first time back in May. Moonrise Kingdom really shocked me. It's my runner-up here. It's sitting at number 2. I did not expect to love this movie as much as I did, based on the fact that I don't know. It just seemed kind of like another movie in his filmography. Like nothing about the marketing or trailers or anything, like any research I did before watching this really struck me as like, oh, I'm gonna love that. But wow, did I love this movie. It is the perfect representation of what it feels like to be 12 years old. I just was transported back to how I would talk to people, how I would interact with the world, how I saw everything at that age. It like immediately brought me back, and I think that's truly something special. But outside of that, it has some of his best character work, some of his best emotion. I know I feel like a broken record, just kind of repeating myself, but it just struck a nerve, like a different nerve that a lot of his other movies don't. It's kind of somber, but like in a joyful way, if that makes any sense. It captures childlike wonder and innocence so well, and wanting to be an adult and trying to act like one when you're very much not, and you're inexperienced, and going on this like grand adventure that to you at the time feels like a life or death situation. And in this movie it is, but like that's how I felt, like going into the woods with my friends and doing something stupid. So I don't know. For me, Moonrise Kingdom hits such a specific niche for me, and that's why I think I put it above some of the other movies. Because like the top 5, I feel like or 5 through 2, I think are kind of interchangeable for me, just because they are all fantastic and I think flawless in their own ways. But the reason I put Moonrise Kingdom above even like Fantastic Mr. Fox is how strong of an emotional reaction it got out of me, and how in love I fell with this world that Wes Anderson created. So, not quite my favorite. It's very neck and neck with my number 1 pick, but yeah, Moonrise Kingdom is flawless. And you have probably already deduced what number 1 is, and that's Rushmore. This is a movie that I saw for the first time last year and then rewatched a couple of days ago, and that just solidified it as being my number one. For me, Rushmore, not only like objectively is it a perfect movie, I feel like almost everybody can agree on that. There is not a single flaw to be found in Rushmore, but it lives beyond its like hipster indie not representation, like reputation. That's what I was trying to say. This movie is a kind of not I don't want to say representation again. It so accurately portrays what it is like to be um, someone who's interested in film, if that makes any sense. This movie, this main character played by Jason Schwartzman, is kind of insufferable. If I knew him in real life, I would hate him. He is very egotistical and like flamboyant and narcissistic to a very big fault. But for me, I think, again, it just very accurately describes what it feels like to be that age. I love the way he can take kind of normal, everyday things and dramatize them and turn them into something that feels like life or death. And there's so many quotable lines in this film and so many memorable characters, but I like how it feels more personal. This obviously is Wes kind of looking back on his own younger self and dramatizing it. And I think that this movie does the best at what Wes Anderson does. This is the best representation of his visual side, of the way what he can get out of actors, his writing, his big emotions, the music that he chooses to put in his movies. Seriously, the ending sequence of this movie, the needle drop of Ooh La La, is my favorite ending to a movie ever. It hits with such an emotional gut punch that I think it just stands head and shoulders above the rest. So for me personally, Rushmore is the quintessential Wes Anderson experience, and I think that it's certainly up there with one of my favorite movies of all time. So yeah, that is my list for my ranking of all of the Wes Anderson movies, and my first video I recorded here at college. So yeah, a little bit about that. There's a movie theater like maybe like a mile down the road, and I will be able to get there every Saturday. So still regular movie reviews, still be seeing some of the bigger releases. Maybe a little bit more of an emphasis on streaming only stuff, just because I'll be pretty busy with schoolwork and stuff like that, and getting adjusted to college life. But other than that, I plan on having Cameron in my next video, and I will see you guys next time.